Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Dario here with another Options and Play video update. So AMD is a name I have talked about in the past. I went over, I believe, um, last month, or actually 2 months ago, it was in April, the idea of what we were looking for with the option trade into earnings at the time, and the fact that after the earnings, it really just didn't play out the way we want it, right? You take a shot. You're comfortable with the risk. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then you approach it with an exit strategy, right? So the trade didn't go as we had planned. We got out, and what that did was it gave me the opportunity to revisit the stock with like a fresh perspective, right, and like a new option strategy when the time was right, right, when like the setup, a new good setup presented itself, right? So what I was looking at earlier in June is when the stock was basically consolidating in a real tight range above 80 and right underneath the bottom of this like monthly downtrend, right? Um, part of what played into it was the fact that Nvidia was just screaming higher. I thought the semis looked well, which I just talked about again yesterday in a video, and I thought that this was a stock that, I mean, not only was it not rewarded for earnings, it was well underneath it. The sector was acting strong, and pure Nvidia was like going up every single day. So I thought like if a breakout was going to get going, that there was like a lot of potential, right? And the way I approached it was like a longer dated. The way we approached it was with a longer dated call spread. But it doesn't mean that you can't look at it on like shorter term options too when you realize it's like close to like an important pivot point, right? So like what I like to do sometimes is like put on like a longer term position, like maybe like a month out, 2 months out. But at the same time, like if there's like a day or two where it's like a real tight setup, and I think you could move that day or like the next 2 days, then I might like add some like short term like weekly contracts. So it could be on like the call side, but also on the put side, right? If I think the stock is due for a little bit of a pullback, even though it's in like a longer uptrend, maybe make a little cash flow on the puts, even though I'm sitting on call spreads, right? So that's kind of like what I was thinking with AMD right now. Now, like if you've been trading for a while, you know that you get into these scenarios where you're like, okay, they call it revenge trading, right? Like I lost on the first time, like I want to really crush it, make back all of my losses and then some, right? But the truth is, you need to trade each trade as if like the one before that didn't happen, right? Like I know I lost on the previous AMD trade, and I know that it was frustrating because I didn't understand why it kept going down every single day after earnings. But right now, I'm not going to just close out of this trade just because the stock has finally gotten back to where it was on that earnings day. Like that was like the initial target. So like that was like the first step, right? So I'm being smart. We're taking money as it hits the first target, but right now there still seems to be like a lot of reasons to stick with the trade. It's just starting to move, right? The sector again is breaking out. Nvidia is acting well. The stock is not close to earnings, but I mean, as we get into July, earnings will start coming into view, right? And they've crushed it 2 quarters in a row, so they've come off like a couple real great quarters. You figure there's going to be interest in it ahead of earnings, right? And technically, now that it's above the high, right, you can see it basically opens it up for moving to the 90s, right? So what I want to say is like you can approach like stocks like this and trades like this with like a few different things, right? Like, obviously everybody always wants to make back what they lost in a trade that didn't work, right? But at the same time, you have to kind of like remove that from your mindset, right? Like just pretend that the one before didn't happen. Like how would you approach this? If this was just like a trade and you'd never traded the stock before, what would you do, right? And right now, for me, like what I would be doing is was sticking with it. Like as it moves, right, hit the initial target, you roll up, right? Now see how it acts around 90. If we can get through 90, maybe there's more room into the mid 90s, right? So it's like, yeah, it's tempting to lock it all. It's tempting to lock the entire trade in as it starts to really move in our favor because make back some of the losses from that earnings trade and then some. But the truth is, it still looks really good, and it still looks like there's more potential. So you have to be smart, right? Like again, like try to separate this trade from the previous trade, and don't say just because I lost on the last one, I want to like lock this in, just to make it back, right? Because this is a totally different trade, different setup, different month, a different environment, and you have to just approach it like as if it's like a unique trade and it just stands on its own. All right. So again, as we get into July, earnings will really pick up, I mean it's been busy. I feel like it'll continue to be busy, and it's just probably going to get even busier as we get into like the second, third week of July. So there's gonna be a lot going on. All right. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information about swing trading with options or trading earnings with options as we get into earnings season, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options and play. I hope you have a wonderful night. Stay well, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.